Today we're going to talk about one of the most important questions that you will need to answer when going through the estate planning process. And that question is, who should you select as your trustee? In today's video, we're going to talk about what exactly a trustee is. We're going to talk about what your options are when selecting a trustee. And then we're going to give a couple of lenses that you can look through when determining what's right for you and your family. So let's get started. What exactly is a trustee? Well, a trustee, very simply put, is a person or entity whose job it is to manage and distribute assets for your beneficiaries. And so again, this could be a person, this could be an entity, but essentially after something happens to you, and this is in the context of estate planning, after something happens to you, this is the person or entity that your beneficiaries will go to get money, essentially, get funds from the trust that you've set up. And so who are your options when selecting a trustee? Now, many people, the first thing they think about is okay, my brother's really successful financially and he's pretty smart. I trust my sister implicitly, and they start thinking about family members or somebody close to them. And that's one of your options. You can choose an individual that you know and trust to be the trustee of the trust for your beneficiaries. What's another option? Option 2 is you can select a professional. You can select, example, an estate attorney, a CPA, a person who's a little bit of an arm's reach. Maybe it's a close family friend that's been doing your taxes or estate planning for a while. You trust them. They know how all this works. So you can select a non-family member who is a professional to administer these trusts. Now, keep in mind, they're charging fees, etc. But this is something that you'd be doing because they have some experience in the field. And what's the third option? Well, the third option is not an individual, but choosing an entity, or choosing a custodian. So for example, like Schwab or Fidelity or any of the trust companies that are out there that don't operate as an individual, but operate as a corporate trustee. And so recapping again, you can choose somebody that's close to you, friend or family that you trust. Number 2, you can choose a professional who you trust to administer and act as trustee, or you could choose an entity, okay, to act as a corporate trustee. And now, again, most people, they just lean towards number 1 when we first start the process because they have somebody in their family that they know and trust, okay? And I want to talk about 2 things that you should consider, or 2 questions that you should ask yourself when you're picking this trustee, because it is an important decision. This is a decades-long decision, most likely. The first question is, we're not really building this estate plan, or you're probably not building your estate plan for what's going to happen tomorrow. This is a decision that's going to take place in 10, 20, 30 years. This is going to be a benefit that is going to happen down the road. And so whoever you're looking at, whether it's a trusted estate attorney or a trusted professional or it's a friend or family member, etc., what is that relationship going to look like in 10, 20, 30 years? Who is that person going to be? Said another way, are they going to hit a certain age where this may not be something they're willing or able to do? In particular, we see clients all the time, sometimes choosing a trustee or thinking about choosing a trustee that's the same age as they are. And that can present some real issues if they're not there to act as the trustee of that trust. And so that's a problem you might run into with any individuals, whether it's a friend or family member or a professional. Not something you'd run into with a corporate trustee, right? They don't necessarily have an age. It's a faceless company that can administer in perpetuity. Okay, so that's the first lens. And the first thing to think about is, don't think about who's going to be a good relationship today. Think about 20 and 30 years in the future or longer. What's the second lens we should consider? The second lens, when you're considering a trustee, is nothing to do about money. And it has a lot to do about relationships. And so one thing you might be thinking is, okay, well, my brother or my sister, my kids have a great relationship with them. They would be a fantastic trustee. Well, when choosing a family member or choosing somebody close to the family because of the relationship, it's important to think about what is going to happen after they become trustee. They've gone from the person that, is great, very close to your kids, to somebody that is pulling the strings on the money that your children or grandchildren or whoever will receive. Now, I've done this quite a bit, or I've been involved in this quite a bit. This can change the relationship. Imagine Thanksgiving dinner when you're meeting with family and there is one family member that decides whether or not they get any money. That can change the relationship, and it's not for the better. That is something to consider. Now, this does not always happen. You might say, you know what? Whoever it is, Sue, Sarah, Sam, It would never change their relationship. I want them to administer it. It's going to be great, even looking through these couple of lenses. But what happens is as people start to think about it, the relationship becomes quite important, and they may not want to sacrifice the relationship in order to have them being the trustee of that trust. Now, that doesn't really impact when you're dealing with an individual professional, and that really has no impact when you're dealing with an entity. And so looking back as a refresher, number one, what age or what situation will that trustee be in 10, 20, 30 years from now? That's an important consideration when choosing an individual, a professional, or an entity. And number two, how is money impacting the relationship? In particular, when you're dealing with number one, which is close friends and family acting as trustee. And so more than anything, it's important to just think through your options. And again, this is not legal advice. This is a framework to think through when you're going through the estate planning process, which, sometimes these are questionnaires and sometimes these are very black and white, fill in the blank type questions. But the reality of it is there's more to it than that. There are people involved. And so when you're thinking about that, try to fast forward to the future and see how things might look, and then also consider how the relationship dynamics might change once money is involved. I hope you found this helpful, and as always, thanks for investing your time with the Personal CFO.